In today's episode of the Deadly Dozen podcast, usually we're live in the gym studio, but this is the first one we're doing actually online because we've decided not to fly to Australia to film it live. We're here with James Kelly, and I was going to say Bernice Kelly, but recently married, so now it's Bernice Lineker, isn't it? So we've got, but the essentially the Kellys in terms of brother and sister. Obviously, most people watching this podcast will be well aware of who James Kelly is, but we will let him introduce himself. Obviously, quite an infamous Hyroxer now, one of the world fitness races essentially. And Bernice's sister is actually our director, so the head of Deadly Dozen in Australia, bringing the Deadly Dozen to Australia, had a first race in Sydney, which was quite stressful initially, wasn't it? I got a phone call at the early hours of the morning and basically it was flooded. So long story short, the Deadly Dozen started in the rainiest country in the world, England, and then on its first expansion to Australia, it almost got rained off, which we thought it was going to be the sunniest. But we've recently had Brisbane, which James competed in. But without going too far into it, what we'll do is just say hello, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for being here. And just to wrap it up from my end, I pretty much just regard myself as Bernice's little brother. That's who I am. So
is Bernice actually the superior athlete?
Definitely, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just too busy with Deadly Dozen.
You wait until we
Deadly Dozen.
You wait until we take on Deadly Dozen side by side.
That'll be quite the pairs team, won't it? Mixed pairs.
That's right.
To see how you get on.
That's right.
It would. Well, we'll have to, Jim, because we James and I are doing our first mixed pairs in Hyrox this year, end of the year. Wow. So maybe next year it's Deadly Dozen.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what time are you going for with Hyrox?
What do you think?
We don't know because this will be my for anyone who doesn't know, I had a baby about actually 7 weeks ago today. She's 7 weeks, so this will be my first postpartum race back. So
Wow.
I think the game plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, is that I run with you and you do all the stations.
Nah, you're doing all the burpees as well. You're doing all the burpees as well.
100% of the burpees.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, like I say, make sure he keeps up, Bernice. So when was that Hyrox, sorry?
That one will be Hyrox Melbourne, which will be December this year. So in about probably 5 weeks' time.
Wow, so you're doing incredibly well there then. It's been 7 weeks and back to a Hyrox with basically one of the best fitness races in the world. After having a
yeah, look, I'm not giving advice to anyone to do what I've done, but yeah, if there's one thing about me is that I'm not holding back. So I'll probably be out on that Deadly Dozen course next year, Jason. Sure. I'll finally be able to actually give it a go myself.
Give it a go, see the difference. So what we'll do then is just to start off, obviously, you know, a lot of the listeners will know who James Kelly is, but we'll start and say, if you could give us a quick intro, James, of you know, how you've got here today, a little bit of backstory about you, you know, how you got into fitness racing, anything you've done prior, and where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. I started pretty much 3 years ago coming into Hyrox, but before that, Jason, I've always been in the health and fitness industry, working in gyms and personal training, and I just fell in love with it straight after school, just fitness in general. And I pretty much have been a competitor against myself in some aspect ever since I was a kid as well. I've always wanted to be the fittest and be the fastest in whatever sport I was doing. You know, I got into Hyrox 3 years ago and been lucky enough to be in the Elite 15 for the last 3 years. And, you know, I'm quietly, I guess, lucky to say that it's my full-time job now. You know, being an elite athlete, it's pretty much a dream come true. But however, on the side as well, I'm a Hyrox coach. I'd probably say more of a hybrid fitness coach as well. And I say that because I strongly believe that you can train for fitness in general to be good at a lot of different types of racing. So I have my online coaching business as well. And yeah, I'm just living the dream at the moment, mate. Just training and coaching like-minded athletes all around the world.
Wow. Yeah, so that is pretty awesome. And did we say that your first ever Hyrox was in Birmingham then?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Was that the first one you ever... So what made you get on a plane and travel all the way to Birmingham to do this fitness race called Hyrox?
I had been following Hyrox for maybe a year or so prior to that. And I just remember actually just going, you know what, my footy season had just finished and I wanted to kind of keep training and try to train for something. And I just told myself, you know what, why not zip over to England and have a crack at this Hyrox sport. And back then, like if I look at it now, I thought I was training for it specifically or in a way that I should be training for. But yeah, I've learnt so much since then. And that was back, that was Birmingham, October 2022. So pretty much three years ago. Exactly. Yeah. And
I think you did the pro race, didn't you, straight away? I think you won that, didn't you? Was it 1:08 or something? Or something along them lines? What was your time? Do you remember?
Yeah.
You were the first male to go sub 60 in his very first race.
Yeah. Thanks, Bernice. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Sister here is always going to be biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. 59.53. I know exactly my
58. Yeah.
59.53 was my first pro race time, and you know, like I'm proud to say that I've been able to get that time. 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I've been able to get that time down to. Yeah. So
which is a lot, isn't it, when you're at that level?
Yeah, I think so. You know, obviously the faster I think you are, the harder it is to scrape time off. It's all a matter of inches then, right? Which is why we do it though. Which is why I personally am so invested in what I'm doing in Hyrox, but also just in fitness in general, right? The hardest thing about what we do, and we as in probably anyone who's listening to this, as well as anyone who's raced in Hyrox, Deadly Dozen, Deca, Spartan even, we're trying to be the fittest, fastest, strongest, most agile, most powerful. And during training, like, it's hard to be all that all at once, but that's what we're trying to strive for. And sometimes something's got to give. You can't be the strongest if you want to be the fastest, and vice versa. It's a real task, and it's a real puzzle to try to solve each day, each week, each month whilst training. So that's what I've fallen in love with for myself, but also I've got the best job because I get to use myself as a guinea pig to then relay it back to my athletes and try to give out the best coaching, best programming for all my athletes that I coach.
Yeah, I noticed that it was actually the last video I seen, which was after your review of Deadly Dozen. And one thing I noticed is, as an S&C coach myself, you've obviously come from coaching and become a top tier athlete. And as a coach myself, you often look at a lot of elite athletes and they get into coaching because they're good at the sport, but they're not necessarily the best coaches. But obviously it's quite clear with your content that you are, a top tier coach. Like with the video when you were talking about strength and sort of sprinkling strength in, you're not just looking at strength and conditioning and saying, right, this is what we would do with this athlete. You are sort of being quite, not just novel, but thinking about how do we, with this new sport that obviously we've had CrossFit for a long time, but this new sport of fitness racing, very much, run, exercise. How do we develop programs that are going to make you the best racer? And a lot of what I've seen from yourself has been, without trying to reinvent the wheel, it's been very much like, right, how do we do this the best way we can? Which I found really interesting. I really liked what you were saying about, sprinkling strength, having strength movements more often, rather than like me traditionally with a lot of sports that I work with, I'd be like, right, 2 strength sessions a week and it's going to be total body, so it goes away from that bro split, but it is just a couple of sessions a week. And you were sort of talking about, right, how do we really fit everything into the week? And it does make fitness racing as a sport and as something to train for it's more three-dimensional, rather than it just being, right, here's a strength program or here's a running program. It's how do we put this puzzle together? And that is what makes it fascinating. So obviously, Bernice, you off the back of your brother being very good at fitness racing, is that the reason why you started Hybrid Sport Media? Because you have the podcast yourself and you do a lot of journalism within the sport. Was that the backbone of why you started that?
Yes and no. Probably I do have to give credit to Jim, because it actually was his idea that we were finding that within this space of fitness racing and hybrid sport, there's some great platforms out there. Credit to Ian K, UKHXR, and there's Hybrid Fitness Media. There's so Rox Life, obviously, Greg, fantastic podcasts out there, and I guess media platforms. But there wasn't any voice for here in the APAC region, not just Australia, but New Zealand and the entire APAC region. And I guess one reason for that, Jason, is because fitness racing in this region did take a little bit longer, I think, than it did in the UK, let alone the US, to become popular. I think one of the reasons for that is COVID, that obviously impacted things with borders and us being able to hold events. But I think James and I kind of both just saw that within this market, if fitness racing is going as well as it was in the UK and the US, my God, Australia is just going to lap it up. And that's exactly what has happened. I mean, the Hyrox events here now sell out 20,000 tickets, and they only held their first event here in 2023. So that's been only 3 years, a little bit less than 3 years of events. So obviously then we kind of just saw that little gap in the market. My background personally is within, journalism and communications and media. So it was something that, doing a podcast, especially getting to do it with my brother, was something that sounded so appealing to me. So we started that, Hybrid Sport Media platform back about 18 months ago, a little bit less than 18 months ago. And that's ironically then how I met you, Jason, and how we became in contact, actually through Ian K. So again, credit to my good mate Ian, that he put us in touch. And I had already known about the Deadly Dozen brand. And funnily enough, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Jason, but before even meeting you and knowing, I guess, what the business model structure is of Deadly Dozen, and that there was an opportunity for me to actually involve myself in that, I was looking into how can we get this race out here, because I just, looking at the format and knowing also on top of that how popular fitness racing was becoming in Australia, I had no doubt. And I think, my husband Dan and I have been able to show that this year with the Australian events, that I have no doubt and continue to have no doubt that it's just going to continue to become so popular over here.
Yeah, it's been amazing really that Ian K actually did. He texted me, he says, I know this, you need to get in contact with Bernice. It's James Kelly's sister and she's really interested. And I jumped on a call. I mean, the last few years, not even a couple of years, have been unbelievable, because I've jumped on calls with what have turned into directors now worldwide, 23 countries. And people have gone, love the concept, and they've just dove in head first really and said, right, let's bring this. So, as we've discussed before, I wanted to create the most scalable fitness race in the world. Like, this is the model: fitness racing, run exercise, athletics tracks, they're everywhere. Let's expand using this model, get passionate people be fitness professionals, they could be businessmen or women, whoever they are. They say, I want to bring the Deadly Dozen to their nation. And although we've got a core brand and the race is what it is, it never changes, we want it to be, like I said to you, we want like Australians running the Aussie races, we want South Africans running the South African race. We want people to put, the race is what it is, but to put their spin on it and do it really well and do it with passion. So obviously you've had your 2 races. and we'll go into that. But obviously, we've also had James do his first Deadly Dozen in Brisbane. Obviously, what was the temperature? Was it in the 30 degrees C? It was fairly warm. And obviously, James has smashed the APAC record. So how did you find it, James? Deadly Dozen in comparison to Hyrox, in comparison to fitness racing?
Yeah, I loved it, and it was my first event. I hadn't. I didn't do a simulation or anything like that beforehand. I can't remember the last time I had bear crawled. So the bear crawls absolutely got me by the end. But the event itself, Jason, is harder than it looks. That's the first thing I'll say. You look at it on paper, and yes, you understand that 12 stations, 12 runs, 400 meters. The actual repetition, exercises and movements being 60 reps at a time is obviously high volume. So that's what I actually really like about the event is the actual the high volume of like a single movement. But then also the actual event being only 400 meter runs in between, for me, like, it didn't allow me to recover on the runs as much as I thought it would, because you're only running a minute 20 to a minute 30 at a time, and then like you're already back into a station. So yeah, the actual event, I love how obviously every Deadly Dozen event is done on an athletics track as well, which is fantastic. And it kind of reminded me just of, my high school athletics day as well, right? And I'm saying that in such a positive manner because I think the last time I raced on an athletics track was high school, and I those athletics days were the best days of the year, and I really like that component as well about it. So yeah, it's exciting that it's here in Australia as well, and hopefully you guys can continue to grow, and I'll be back for more.
Yeah, well, our plan is to literally in the next couple of years to expand to every accessible country there is, and it's doable with the model that we've got, and obviously the equipment's not out of people's means. It's kettlebells, dumbbells and weight plates. So obviously being an elite Hyrox, we've got the World Championship coming up in September, so we're putting 120,000 British pounds of prize money, so the winner gets £12,000 for the solos. We're also giving £12,000 for the pairs and stuff like that. So if you were to be training for Deadly Dozen, would you be shifting, if obviously you're going to have a focus continually as a fitness racer, potentially on Hyrox at the same time, but would you be how would you change your training for Deadly Dozen? Now you've done the track race, what would you do slightly differently?
So I think, great question, and I love these type of questions because I've got athletes all around the world who are training for a Hyrox right now, or training for a Hyrox but also doing a half marathon coming up, or training for a half marathon and also got a Deadly Dozen or a Deca, and I'm very I strongly believe that your overall fitness can carry you in all dimensions of the sport and the sport of hybrid racing, and not only that, but running racing as well. I personally think you don't need to be as specific as what people think you need to. However, just to answer the question first, right? If I was going to come over to the World Championship, I wouldn't be doing it just to just to fill in the numbers. I'd be coming over to win, and due to that, I'd make sure that I do a bit more specific work. That doesn't mean I'd be not I'd be changing a lot. I'd just be doing a little bit more specific movement work, maybe some work that I'm only running 400 meters at a time, not longer, etc., etc. However, going back to it, the way I train and then the way I program and coach, we can get better at Hyrox, we can get better at Deadly Dozen, at running in general, just focusing on the principles of fitness, and working on things in isolation before blending it all together. And just an example, if you're listening to this, you probably understand, a lot of people do a Hyrox simulation race before their actual proper race, or there's probably people out there that do that before a Deadly Dozen race or a DECA event. And yes, that's not wrong to do, and you can definitely do that. But first and foremost, that's giving you false measurements and false hope sometimes, doing that in your own gym environment, when you can actually get a better stimulus by doing something that is just going to allow your fitness to develop more than actually the task at hand, aka a Hyrox sim or a Deadly Dozen. So yeah, no, I'd definitely practice the movements and do a little bit more specifics, but on the grand scheme of things, my structure and my training wouldn't change at all.
And so if you were to give like a classic example of what an average training week looks for you, and literally just in terms of like frequency, training modality, so training modality, frequency, intensity and volume, like what does your average week look like? Is it, as an example, it's 3 runs, tempo run, track session, or is it a zone 2 and then it's like 2 strength sessions? So what does an average training week look like for you?
So an average training week for me, Jason, looks like I try to do everything today with the intensity that is needed to make sure that I can back up tomorrow. And what that means is the consistency over a week, a month, a year is more important than absolutely smashing myself today and not being able to train tomorrow. So that's the first thing I'll say, is that the intensity that I train at is probably a lot lower than what people think, so that I can train again tomorrow and then train again the next day. The volume of the training is high, and rightly so. Just to go to it, I train on a 6-day cycle with a 1-day full rest day. And I pretty much go from an easy aerobic day to a double threshold day, easy aerobic day, double threshold day, and do that for 6 days. I'm running anywhere between 90 to 100 kilometers a week, and that's obviously I'll be honest, that I'm hitting that most weeks, apart from when I'm tapering. And that's, with easy aerobic work, but also threshold work, and sometimes strength running and speed work on Saturdays. To then, everything else, and I call it everything else because the running structure, especially for Hyrox, and the running trainings, especially for Hyrox, is the most important. Everything else is sprinkled in. And what that means is I do a strength piece every day. I train strength every day. My strength piece every day is no more than 15 to 20 minutes though. But I am, just an example, I'm doing a heavy hinge push, vertical push and and horizontal push. I'm squatting twice a week. I'm unilateral lunging at least once a week, strength-wise, and so on and so forth, meaning I'm trying to get better at those biomechanical planes of motion under load once a week, but not taxing myself that I'm doing 30, 40, 50 minutes worth of that one movement pattern. And that's important because that allows me to still strength train the next day and the next day and so on and so forth. Just to, I guess, go back to the question, I'm probably training anywhere between 20 and 25 hours a week. I'll be honest, that's what I have learned that I need to do if I do want to be at the top end of the sport. Especially in Hyrox at the moment.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. It's like I really liked when you said that you were sort of doing the strength daily, because in essence it was almost like strength athletes were doing, they might do a lot of them would do strong lifts and do 5x5 squat, bench, deadlift sort of stuff. But a lot of the gym goers would do, right, today is chest and tris or a push session, tomorrow is a total leg day, you do an upper body day, a lower body day. S&C coaches working with athletes would often go, no, what we're going to do is total body, so we're not taxing any muscle group too much that has a knock-on effect. You've took that almost a step further for hybrid sport or fitness racing and gone, well, what we're going to do is a strength movement daily, but it's not going to be a strength session, it's going to be a strength exercise. And then you're sprinkling on the sort of mixed modality work like circuits, Metcon and stuff. But obviously the backbone of what you're doing is running, which is split between sort of low intensity, longer durations. Then you said the second day is more tempo work, working at a higher intensity at a set pace. So what would you say then, to finish this bit off, what would be if you were to give a ratio, a percentage between what would be low to moderate intensity and then high intensity? Do you follow that 80-20 split model, or what's your split?
Yeah.
Would you say as an estimate?
Definitely roughly 80-20. I mean, it depends on my training block and how close I am at to a race. Like the further I am away from a specific race, the more close to the 80-20 rule applies, and then I'm try to sharpen up closer to a race, which goes probably towards it never goes 50-50. It never goes 50% intense and 50% kind of like low intense. It probably, if anything, it probably goes 60-40. But that's probably only for a couple of days, not a week. Only a couple of days before, obviously, my taper starts for a specific race.
And do you think that 80-20 fits when someone's doing 3 or 4 hours a week? Because obviously it's easy to say at the elite level, people always preach 80-20. But when they're doing, say, 20 hours of training, that can be 3 or 4 hours a week of high intensity, which is a lot. And then the rest is sort of backloaded with the lower intensity. So would you still recommend that sort of split for someone that's only doing 3 or 4 hours of training a week? Or would you say actually there needs to be more hard training to get you ready for what is going to be a really, really hard race?
Well, I think the answer to that is it's all relative anyway, right? So, and what I mean by that is, someone's 5 hours a week and only training for 5 hours a week is like my 20 hours a week. So it does. The message here is, well, if you want to continue to train 5 hours a week and be consistent with your training, you should probably not care about not care, but you should make sure that you look after yourself so that you can continue to hit 5 hours a week. And the only way to do that is to take care of your intensity.
And do you think for most people that want to progress in the sport, that they need to, obviously this is people that do want to dedicate more time. It's not saying, there's a lot of people that can't. But for those that do you think the secret really is that they're going to have to start increasing their overall training volume in terms of hours per week?
I think...
Is that really a secret weapon of a lot of the elites?
Well, yes, I definitely do think that I think there's a line, of course, but I think if you can do more and be able to recover from doing more, you're going to allow yourself to adapt to that training volume.
Yeah.
The thing about the thing that people I think underestimate or don't think about is whoever you are, whether you're an elite athlete or someone who's stepping on the track for their first Deadly Dozen event, you're racing, you're out there for at least 40 minutes, right? The world record is 37:59, right, for Deadly Dozen. He did that in 37:59 seconds. Of that 37 and 59 seconds, he was in his threshold zone the whole time. He's not using his ATP system, which is explosive, really explosive, high intensity system. Probably you can right at the start when the gun goes off. You'd be silly if you do, but you can. And then obviously if you're fit enough, you could probably use that a couple of times during the race. But all I'm getting to here is no matter who you are, your aerobic and anaerobic system is far more important than pure intensity in VO2 max, whether you are racing in Deca, Deadly Dozen or Hyrox. And ultimately, if you think about it from a perspective of strength and conditioning and energy systems, the more aerobically fit you are, the quicker you are going to be able to recover. And that's all we're trying to do. The fastest athlete out there, whether you're racing in Deca, Hyrox, Deadly Dozen, is the one that actually can recover the fastest. And ultimately, the one that can recover the fastest probably has the most oxygen intake aerobically over time. So that's why the easy work is far more important than anything else, because if you can start adding in or doing more easy work, it's just going to increase your ability to push harder in the first place. It's really hard to grasp, because I think I'm the first to say that with everything that I do personally, I just want to go. I just want to get it done, or I just want to do things as fast as possible, because that's, I guess, what I want to do. And I think everyone probably feels the same, right? With fitness, especially with running, but in fitness in general, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of you've got to build that foundation before anything, to allow yourself to actually respect intensity afterwards.
To go hard and recover. So you're absolutely right, and that's where all the science is leaning, and what you see as the backbone of the coaching. So Bernice, obviously, I'm confident that James is confident that he would take the world record. Do you think James is going to be the best Deadly Dozen athlete in the world come the end of next year?
I'm the worst person to ask, because I have the biggest bias. Of course he is.
And do you think you're going to... So at the moment, we've got, obviously, Dave Parkin is what we've always said is, we've seen Dave Parkin for the first time, and we're he is purpose built for Deadly Dozen. CrossFitters tend to be shorter, your Hyroxes tend to be taller. And Deadly Dozen is almost this sort of race in between, where it's simple stuff, there's no complexity, but it's goblet squats, it's push press, it's dumbbell snatch. Dave basically has this engine where he just goes and he doesn't slow down, and he's just got this, incredible split times. So obviously you've come in, you've never done a sim before, coming from the Hyrox, definitely favours the stronger runners. Deadly Dozen is a little bit more in the middle, where it doesn't allow you to escape from, you know, the sort of more muscular endurance. It tends to reg zone you that little bit more. So are you confident, James, that, you know, I don't know if you're able to make it to the World Championships, which is 5th and 6th of September in London, Crystal Palace, but do you think you're going to take that World Championship?
Mate, it's
James?
Early days, and I'll be honest, like, looking at what David's done, like, geez, he's obviously super quick, especially on the stations as well. I got no idea. I'll be honest. What I did in Brisbane, you know, I was maxed out there, and you know, I ran a 40-minute Deadly Dozen. So I'd have to go to the drawing board and actually have a look at all right, where can I actually shave some time to actually be to actually be in the picture with him. But yeah, kudos to David, and you know, like, if it all aligns, I'd love to be able to come over and be there for the World Champs. So we'll have to wait and see.
We'll try and make it happen. And just a quick question before I move over to Bernice to talk a little bit more about her events is, out of all of the Elite 15s and the top fitness racers, who do you think is going to be the best Deadly Dozen? Aside from, say, yourself, out of all the ones you know, who do you think, now that you've done the race, do you think has the biggest strength? So is it Hunter McIntyre? Is it a Jake Deirdre? Who do you think is the biggest contender to be the Deadly Dozen World Champion?
It's easy to me. Lauren Weeks, for sure.
Lauren Weeks?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. Yeah. Everyone in the comments. So I was like, who would you like to see? Obviously, Tier 2 is from CrossFit, and she's Aussie, isn't she? But she lives in the States. But everyone in the comments, when we were asking, like, who do you want to see? Everyone was saying Lauren Weeks.
Yeah. I
like, literally everyone.
I think she'd absolutely kill it. Yeah.
I agree. I think Lauren could be, because Jason, I was going to bring it up before. Correct me. The women's world record for everyone listening is 40 minutes and is it about 30
just over
something?
40.
Just over 40. Yeah, I think we very well could see the likes of Lauren Weeks breaking that. But I hope you don't mind me actually just throwing a question at you, Jason, because I'm just thinking back to, you know, the sport of Hyrox. You know, no one really thought that, for example, that females could go sub 60 a couple of years ago in a Hyrox Women's Pro. I don't think anyone ever dreamed that we would have the top men that we do now in the Hyrox Elite doing, you know, if you're doing a 55, you may not even be coming top 10 on the day, which is just crazy. What do you think, Jason, we could see in the next few years in terms of those Deadly Dozen times, both men's and women's solos?
I think that the women, so far we've had, you know, not many men have broke, say, 43 minutes. It was only Dave that the reason why we talked so much about him, because he was like an outlier. Now, we've had a lot of really good female athletes come through, especially in Germany. They had quite a few hit 40. South Africa had some great athletes. But I think because the women's weights, they're obviously, they're lighter than the men. So we've built a good ratio where it fits quite well. And we see they're sort of similar in times at the sort of relative levels. But I actually think because Deadly Dozen weights are doable, it's all about the volume. I think we're going to start seeing some super, super strong females that have come from like a CrossFit background that are also track athletes. So they're incredibly fast over 400. And I think long term, you'll actually get women will have the overall fastest record. So far, actually, men, there's a slight bias towards the male times are slightly faster than the female times. Even though some of the stronger females will say the devil press and the push press are quite light for them because they've come from a CrossFit or a weightlifting background. But I actually think long term, the likes of Lauren Weeks, which a lot of people have been telling me they think she's like the best overall like hybrid athlete in a lot of ways, is I think the likes of Lauren Weeks will have the fastest overall time, even though as a whole males are that little bit faster, and that comes down to sort of power output on the 400s. The male run times tend to be that little bit faster, that they get that slightly faster overall time. But yeah, I think you'll have someone like Lauren Weeks or, you know, a world-class female athlete get closer to 35. And I think for men, you are world class if you're around that 40 mark, but I think you'll start getting, and obviously judging's key. We've got one of the hardest races to judge in a sense. We're going to really up it. And I think with good form, I think we're at that threshold, but I think 36, 37 is doable. They'll get there because thresholds will just keep getting broken. You know, and the 400 times, because we asked the question, like, how fast can someone do 12 400s with them labours in between? You know, 60 metres of walking lunges, burpee broad jumps. How fast can you do it? Is anyone ever going to do it like 60-second 400s? I mean, it seems almost impossible. A lot of world-class athletes used to do 12 by 400 with like 45 seconds. And to hold 12 400s and do a minute every time, you are like amazing. Like, to do that with labours in between, walking lunges and bear crawl, 60 goblet squats. Yes, it's only 16 kilo, but you know, that was the beauty of this race, is people look at it and go, that's doable. Once around the track, do that. But then you do it and you're like, that's one of the hardest things I've ever done. So yeah, I think actually the world-class females are going to be, we're going to see an elite body between 35 and 40. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think all the elites are going to be competing against each other, which will be really interesting to see. So obviously we've got all these events worldwide and we're seeing which countries are coming out on top. But what's your plans then, Bernice, for Deadly Dozen Australia?
Yeah, we have big plans. I mean, obviously this year has been, it's been fantastic. We've had the unfortunate events of weather, which you would never believe in Australia. But our Sydney event, I won't get into the whole entire backstory, but we just had one of those, 1 week in a year. It probably happens here where we just get flooded with rain. And we were, for everyone listening, we were actually to the point of potentially cancelling the night before because the entire track was flooded. Thankfully, we came up with a new solution and were able to change the format of Deadly Dozen to actually have those stations on the track. And it worked really well. Obviously, that's not the usual format, so unfortunately those times from that race didn't count towards the global leaderboard. But then we had Brisbane just on this past weekend, so it really was our first actual Deadly Dozen event of doing it within the grass area. And, I'm sure James would agree that it was such a fantastic day. It was a very hot day, 35 degrees. Here in Australia for an October day. It was quite warm with a storm rolling in the afternoon. So as I said, the weather hasn't been on our side, but both events have just been, we've had such great feedback from the communities here, from our event partners, from the athletes competing, even just from spectators, who have just come along to, whether it's watch family or friends, or they've kind of been walking past and just really enjoyed the day. I think having it on an athletics track, it just can bring people in so much from the community, which is fantastic. So our plans for 2026, stay tuned on our socials because the lovely man behind the scenes, Toby Davis, is working on some content for us at the moment, and we will be announcing our dates and locations very soon. But I can confirm that we are coming back to Sydney. That event yet to be announced, but I'll do a little teaser that it will be in March next year. So put that one in your diaries. For everyone listening, that one will potentially be the last Australian Deadly Dozen race that you will be able to qualify for the World Championships for Deadly Dozen in September. So a big race. We will also have the Oceanic Championships though. So between us and New Zealand, those will be held in New Zealand. Yet to be announced in terms of date and location for that one, but stay tuned on our socials as well as Deadly Dozen New Zealand. But on top of that, Jason, we have a lot of plans next year to take it to cities that we haven't been to before. I'm going to keep my mouth zipped on where we're thinking. We are looking at going back to Queensland, but I guess I'll just give a hint that not necessarily Brisbane. So anyone can take a little punt there as to where we might be thinking of going. But we also love hearing feedback from people. So, anyone listening who's from Australia, or even if you're not, tell us where you'd like us to go. One thing I know we've spoken to you about, Jason, that I think my husband and I, Dan, because we are a husband and wife team with Deadly Dozen, we definitely underestimated, probably very silly that we underestimated this, but just how large Australia is and how many options we actually have to go to different cities. A lot of these fitness races, unfortunately, because if they're held within an indoor area, they can't be held in more regional cities. So that's probably the future of Deadly Dozen Australia, is being able to go to these regional cities that don't have the opportunities to race these fitness races as much. So cities such as Newcastle and Canberra and, you know, Sunshine Coast and Cairns. I'm just throwing a few names out there. I'm not confirming any details. But that probably is our long-term plans. You know, our capital city events are always going to be huge. We're always going to have a huge market there. But we're also, we also know that there's a huge market in these regional cities, and we want to be able to bring a Deadly Dozen event to those cities and those communities.
Well, that's what we always talked about, didn't we? That, you know, you've got the big cities where we'll run the races, but the beauty of Deadly Dozen is we can be literally everywhere there's a track, and we don't have to sell tens of thousands of tickets. It's literally hundreds of tickets. It's well worthwhile us putting on a race. We can literally be everywhere. But yeah, like, quick shout out to your guy Toby. That we're lucky enough now in the UK. We have a full-time media team, and we really work hard to try and create media. But the content that came out of Australia was just unbelievable. The best we've seen, you know, outside of what we're now producing in the UK with a full-time team. So what Australia put out in terms of content, great event. It looked absolutely fantastic. Obviously, huge thanks to James for taking it on, because it's having elite athletes like James and what will really build exposure to the Deadly Dozen. So we're incredibly grateful for that. But Toby's done a phenomenal job. Like, Simon and our whole media team were just like, they were absolutely ecstatic about, look at all this content coming out of Australia. If all of the directors worldwide can produce content like that, then we're just going to be flying. So, point to note on your Sydney event in March, is it? You were saying I should be coming out for that, so I'll be getting a factor 50 on. So we'll be bringing the UK media team, and we'll be meeting everyone, and you'll see me in a big sun hat.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'll race. It might be a bit hot. Like I say, I'd say I'd take on James Kelly, but he'd be about 15 minutes ahead of me. We'd have to put him in a 20-kilo weighted vest. But no, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Australia grows. Like, both Australia and New Zealand. Like, New Zealand's, they're planning like 10 events a year or more. Australia, straight away, what's been, you know, the biggest sort of, you know, it's been incredible. Lost for words just how many people in Australia have signed up to this new race. And hopefully this race really complements the sport of fitness racing and all of the fitness races. But yeah, what we'll do is just final words here. Just say thanks to both of you. Thanks to you, Bernice, for taking the leap. I don't know how long ago it was our first call.
It was about actually, it's probably our 1 year anniversary, Jason. It was about this time last year. Yeah, because I do recall, or maybe it was a little bit earlier, I do recall that my husband, Dan, and I were about to get married. So we were having that conversation with you, I think, the week of our wedding. But no, we can't thank you enough. Like, we just love this brand. And I think you made a good point just there about how it complements the rest of fitness racing. And that's one thing I always say to people, is that Deadly Dozen or any of these events, we're not here to compete with each other. If anything, we're here to complement each other. I mean, James even touched on it before, that he has athletes who their main goal might be a Hyrox, but they're also training for a Deca and a Deadly Dozen. Or their main goal might be a half marathon, but they like to do fitness racing on the side. And I think that's one of the biggest things to point out, is that, you know, we're not here to be competitors. If anything, we just build each other up, don't we? With the more fitness races we can provide to communities. And I think that's one thing that Dan and I are really excited about, is that long-term goals, we will be able to bring fitness racing to more communities across Australia and make that real change here, which I'm really excited to be a part of.
Well, the way health and fitness is going, it's just a massive, massive pie that's forever growing. And the more quality fitness races, the more the sport will build and people work towards them. So yeah, huge thanks to you, Bernice, because like I say, without you, there wouldn't be Deadly Dozen in Australia right now. So you've made it happen. It's taken that leap, and it's a huge decision to make, and to take that risk and take the leap into this new sport. And James, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for being a part of Deadly Dozen, because obviously you're a world-class Hyrox athlete. To then take on Deadly Dozen, it's amazing exposure for us, and we're really excited on our side to see. Everyone was really excited to see how you would get on at Deadly Dozen. Obviously, you absolutely smashed it. You know, form was fantastic, which is good to see. But we're really excited to see your progress, James, because obviously you're just, you know, sailing high and doing fantastic in the sport of fitness racing. But it'll be really interesting to see how you get on with Hyrox, and also your journey, hopefully with Deadly Dozen and maybe other fitness races in the future. Thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on, and looking forward to continuing to be involved in Deadly Dozen.
No, I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.